WNYC Studios is supported by Odoo. When you buy business software from lots of vendors, the costs add up and it gets complicated and confusing. Odoo solves this. It's a single company that sells a suite of enterprise apps that handles everything from accounting to inventory to sales. Odoo is all connected on a single platform in a simple and affordable way. You can save money without missing out on the features you need. Check out Odoo at odoo.com. That's odoo.com.
It's the Brian Lehrer Show on WNYC. Good morning, everyone. We'll begin today with New York City's Deputy Mayor for Community Safety, Renita Francois, appointed by Mayor Mamdani to run the new Office of Community Safety that he hopes will keep the city safe in different ways from the police department. This, of course, is in addition to the police department. Yesterday, the mayor held a kind of Summer is Coming public safety event with Governor Kathy Hochul and Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch in the Bronx.
Our hope is that this is a fun summer. It's maybe slightly a less hot summer than today. I feel like I'm going to dissolve in front of you. And that it's going to be a safe summer.
That event was more focused on a change to policing in the Bronx than on the Office of Community Safety's work. But in a written press release, the mayor said, alongside an Office of Community Safety focused on preventing violence before it happens by connecting New Yorkers to the support they need, we are taking a whole-of-government approach to public safety, unquote. So let's discuss how that's taking shape with the Deputy Mayor for Community Safety, Renita Francois. Her previous positions include Chief Program Officer at the progressive advocacy group Beyond Impact, and she was Executive Director under Mayor de Blasio of the Mayor's Action Plan for Neighborhood Safety. Deputy Mayor, thanks for joining us. Welcome back to WNYC.
Thank you for having me. It's nice to be with you today.
Can you do the basics for our listeners first? It's still new enough, especially those who don't yet understand how an Office of Community Safety will lead to community safety differently from the NYPD or other agencies that already exist?
So the Office of Community Safety, it brings together the offices and organizations and people working in our city to both strengthen the social fabric of our communities and support them in times of need. It's really about education, investing in young people, providing culturally specific support, increasing our ability to coordinate, preventing harm, and just really about ensuring that we have the right response at the right time when crisis occurs. We see this work as additive to the public safety infrastructure as opposed to, this community safety or police dichotomy. We believe that it's all a part of keeping New Yorkers safe. And a lot of this work is it's not necessarily new. The city funds a lot of community-based organizations to work with the specific communities that they are close to provide, culturally competent care to those communities and to really give them the intimate responses to their needs that the organizations that are closest to these communities can do. And, the NYPD partners with a lot of these organizations. We see this as really like all-inclusive, expanding our ability to coordinate and to support in the right ways. There's a lot of intersectionality between the issues that we're talking about: community violence, gun violence, hate crimes, the way we support survivors of violence, domestic and gender-based violence, and of course, our mental health support and apparatus itself. So this is really an all-inclusive way that the city is coming together to address the needs of our neighborhoods and our communities.
And we'll get specific as we go. Listeners, we welcome your questions for Renita Francois, now the Deputy Mayor for Community Safety in New York City. 212-433-WNYC. Call or text 212-433-9692 if you'd like to ask her a question. I mentioned you were Executive Director under Mayor de Blasio of the Mayor's Action Plan for Neighborhood Safety. Your bio page says you oversaw more than $500 million in investments in neighborhood safety initiatives, particularly in communities experiencing high crime, and led strategic efforts across more than a dozen city agencies. So can you talk about some of that work and what you think was successful or not? People forget that crime was declining year by year, and it was one of the biggest stories under Mayor de Blasio from 2014 until 2019.
Sure. So the Mayor's Action Plan for Neighborhood Safety, of course, is a program that's near and dear to my heart. It actually still exists today and is in a part of the Office of Community Safety portfolio, which I'm grateful for. And I really look at that work as sort of a precursor to what we are doing here today. MAP was about looking at communities, public housing communities in all five boroughs that were experiencing not just high rates of violence, but other forms of social distress. These neighborhoods have been disinvested in. They weren't necessarily receiving the response from government that other, maybe more well off parts of the city were receiving. And so this was really the initiative is really about like how we get upstream and how we bring all aspects of the city into this idea that, safety is expansive and the things that we feel and experience that affect our safety are expansive as well. And so as part of MAP, several city agencies were, tasked with being in partnership with these communities. We're talking about HRA, we're talking about NGBB at that time, NYCHA, of course, and a host of other city agencies, including NYPD. And what we did was build these stakeholder teams at each of these developments. And these stakeholder teams worked under a framework called Neighborhood Stat, where they got together to look at all forms of data, not just crime data, but the data from other city agencies, public health data, to look at the issues that were really facing their community and that they felt were destabilizing. For example, you had neighborhoods in the Bronx that may have been experiencing open air substance abuse and felt like they didn't have the support that they needed for their neighbors. There was a proliferation of needles in the green space because of the public open air substance use. And so as part of the MAP initiative, stakeholders, including folks from DOHMH and NYPD and the residents who live there, and other private organizations and community-based partners came together to determine how they would use the resources invested by the Mayor's Action Plan for Neighborhood Safety to really come together to create solutions that they felt would address those issues. And so one of the things that they did in that space was create a community garden, a serenity garden, they called it, in that specific area where they were experiencing this proliferation of needles. And they advocated for proper and appropriate cleaning supplies and protection materials for NYCHA workers. And they got public and private partnership to actually build out this garden and plant things that they felt would provide a serene space for their neighbors that they could activate with community-based partners and city agencies to come and disseminate information about substance abuse and where folks could find support, where they could get mental health support, and really activate that space in a way that addressed that issue for that community. And we did that across the city. There were a number of different things.
Can I jump in on that one? Because that's such an interesting specific example. Did that trickle up to fewer needles on the street, fewer people using, and less violent crime? Can you draw a connection and connect dots like that?
Yeah, I think what we can say about that work is one, so that the training that residents receive and agency partners receive to do that work is called crime prevention through environmental design. And MAP has a very specific focus on the built environment and what space activation and having people come and be in spaces and what stewardship does for communities. And so what we can say is there was increased traffic, of course, in the garden because it was a cleaned out space. That space was previously fenced in. And NYCHA worked with residents to remove the fencing around that space so that it was actually something that residents could have access to. And so because of that, with the benches and the plants and all of the things that they put there, we saw increased traffic in that space. And of course, there were more events and all of the things that I described in terms of service provision and the city staff and CBOs that we were able to get out into that space during critical times where residents had identified that they would see this type of activity to address it. So of course, you will see less of the needles because you actually have people stewarding the space in a way that wasn't done before. And so I can say that definitely changed the environment around that space and created a positive win for residents to see that they could actually do work and the city would be responsive and partner with them to change something in their community that they felt was causing harm or was not addressing a harm that was already there.
So what would be different in this new office from what you did in that one under Mayor de Blasio? Because, of course, Mayor Mamdani ran on this as a very new initiative.
Yes, and it is new. And the newness of it is, one, just the prioritization and the visibility of it. Before, I think I would say with the MAP project, there was a lot of influencing, a lot of collaboration that we did with agency partners, but not necessarily a mandate or authority to do the things that we were doing. And so I think in some instances, it may have taken longer than we wanted it to take. It may have been a more bureaucratic process than we would have liked it to be, and was just more difficult to accomplish. Whereas with the Office of Community Safety, we are looking at these things as really complementary of one another, and the support as really complementary. For example, some of the things that we did as part of the MAP initiative were specifically funded, and some were not. And so it was really what agency partners were able to do, with their, if they had time to do it or if they had additional resources to offer. But what the Office of Community Safety provides, for example, in this incident, we have the Office of Community Mental Health as part of our portfolio, and we are able to influence the strategy and the coordination of OCMH into these other neighborhood safety and community safety initiatives that perhaps they are not quite reaching yet. And so the coordination that we're able to do is different. The investment is different. The budget just came out. Of course, we have increased investments in all the offices under the community safety portfolio. And so I think we've really just expanded our mandate, our visibility, our resources, and really the energy and the understanding around what it means to be safe and to support our communities and identifying safety. This is really a whole of government issue. It's not confined to specific offices or agencies like just OCS or just NYPD.
My guest is Renita Francois, the Deputy Mayor for Community Safety, a new position that Mayor Mamdani created. Here's a question from a listener. You were just talking about mental health. Listener writes, how will the new department address mental health crises that occur in New York City public schools? Would that be under your office at all?
Well, the NYCPS is, of course, its own agency, but I think that the support the Office of Community Safety provides, like I was speaking to before, is the coordination and the ability to connect with other agencies and help them, support them to get resources into the schools in a meaningful way. And so I have already connected with the commissioner of NYCPS and his staff, and we have been talking and generating ideas for how we can collaborate together. And so mental health is absolutely a focus of that. We also have our community-based partners that are funded through the Office of Neighborhood Safety that do wraparound support in certain schools. And so definitely looking at how we might expand that support that is already existing, and how we can work with our behavioral health vertical under OCS to provide the cross training to the other offices and the other issue areas under the OCS portfolio. So how can we infuse mental health support into the gender-based violence work, into the hate crimes prevention work, and into the neighborhood safety work? Thinking about those coordinated strategies is one of our top priorities for the office.
You mentioned gender-based violence, and we have a call on that. Leah in Manhattan, you're on WNYC with the Deputy Mayor for Community Safety, Renita Francois. Hi, Leah.
Hi, and hi, thank you for taking my call. Nice to speak with you, Deputy Mayor. I was very curious about, with the history of violence against women in New York City, especially with it increasing across the world right now. In 2024, there were the series of women getting punched on the street, and it, was very worrying. I myself have experienced violence in my time here, and it feels almost, we don't want to call NYPD because a lot of times it feels like they're not going to do something, or we're at risk of experiencing violence a second time. Is there anything that this office will do publicly to protect women, make them more safe, especially after they've experienced violence? And, what are the messages putting out there? Because I could be wrong. I don't remember Eric Adams making a statement specifically about the women getting punched in NYC during 2024. So that kind of, adds to the violence of the city. It's not fun to have to walk around being worried about who's going to be approaching you at that moment.
Yeah, thank you, Leah. Deputy Mayor, what would you say to her?
Of course, it's very important for people across New York City, and especially folks who are at risk of gender-based violence, to feel and be safe in the city. And so I am really happy about supporting the Office to End Domestic Gender-Based Violence in this portfolio and working with them. They really do employ a survivor-centered approach. We have expanded their funding in this budget for them to do more outreach to communities, and so that they can fund more community-based partners who are doing this work, who are trusted in their communities and neighborhoods and in their circles. I actually met with some of those advocates this week to hear about the good work that they do and the support that they need to bolster that work and to be more visible and to provide the support that you were, talking about, giving them options on who they can and should call when these incidents occurs, and really expanding our ability to do that. And so for me, my approach and OCS's approach is really about listening to listening to people who have experienced this sort of violence, or listening to people who have a personal interest in domestic and gender-based violence issues, and using that to really inform our strategy and to really inform what it is that we need. I think that the beautiful thing about this administration is we are really not, we are not hamstrung to things of the past or doing things just for the sake of doing them because they've been done. We are open to innovation and to new ways of thinking about how to address these challenges, and centering that with people who actually have experienced these issues and who care deeply about these issues. And so I'm looking forward to continuing to partner with community-based organizations and increasing their capacity to do just what the caller said, which is to offer other pathways of response and support when our people across the city experience these issues. And hopefully we can work together with our partners in law enforcement to eradicate these issues.
If I remember correctly, the recent crime stats showed a lot of kinds of violence are declining in New York City, some of them like shootings and murders markedly, but that gender-based violence was up. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm doing that from memory. And then I think there's been a discussion, is it just that reports of gender-based violence are up because women feel more comfortable than they used to actually reporting it? Or is something going on in the city? Do you have a take on this?
So I think this is always the question. This was the question when I worked on MAP. This is the question across a number of different issue areas, like hate crimes as well. We experience them. People experience them and may not report if they don't feel, secure and safe, or that they have a trusted partner to report it to. And then there's the idea that we do all this education, and we spread the word about all of the partners that we have who can support this work and who, know the communities that experience these issues and these tragedies. And so that the work that they do, of course, promotes reporting and promotes seeking support and seeking help. And so it is a complex number to disentangle, because I don't know that we can be 100% sure whether it is actual incidents, because many people, unfortunately, suffer in silence. And so part of our responsibility with this office is making sure that we have accessible and responsive and supportive services that people feel like they can access and that they feel safe to access. But that does not necessarily mean that that's going to translate to a crime reported and documented by police. With the Office of Community Safety, our goal is really to ensure that people have the support that they need, whether they're at a place where they feel like they can report or not. We want to make sure that we are reaching them and that we are providing them with the care that they need, whether that be, resources through programs like Home Plus that NGVB, the office that manages the gender-based violence work, does. And Home Plus is about, how do we provide resources that will support changing locks and windows and like the physical security of your home, or the things that I was talking about before, like culturally specific care and the funding that goes to nonprofits who do this work as well.
I was just trying to find that stat that I was remembering, and what I found instead was a New York Times article from just 3 weeks ago with the headline, "Advocates Worry Mamdani May Be Weakening Anti-Domestic Violence Office." And it says, when Mayor Zohran Mamdani announced that he was creating the Office of Community Safety, that you're deputy mayor of, to overhaul New York City's policing of mentally ill people, One part of his plan quietly sparked a behind-the-scenes uproar. In creating that office, Mr. Mamdani quietly pushed the domestic violence office down the City Hall hierarchy. Survivors of domestic violence, as well as professionals who work with them, plan to hold a news conference denouncing the mayor's decision. Do you have a response to that?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I met with several of those advocates this week, and I think that we have an alignment and understanding on the vision for this office and the work, but more importantly, the mission and the survivor-centered approach of NGVB and the statutory responsibilities of that office have not changed. Like I said, the transition is really about like how we improve coordination across these systems, like housing and healthcare and crisis response and survivor supports, and not really reducing their role or independence. And so I think that, what we can contribute to this space as one uniform coordinated office of community safety is really just that. Like survivors have to deal with so many systems, and this structure is designed to make those systems work together more fluidly and efficiently. For them, there's no intention to reduce funding. Of course, we have increased funding in the last budget. There's no intention of disrupting any of their provider relationships or services. This transition, it continues to include all of the engagement with the advocates and providers and stakeholders that there's been, and perhaps even increased engagement, because like I said, the leaders of these organizations were actually able to sit down and meet with me within the first 3 weeks that I've been on this job. And I don't know that may have been possible before in a portfolio that is more vast where they were before and that has a number of different issues that it's focused on. This is really focus work that has the attention of a deputy mayor that is responsible for being attentive to their needs, to the needs of their communities, to the needs of the people that they support. And I think that the advocates will tell you they experienced that with me this week.
The mayor's announcement in the Bronx yesterday was more NYPD focused, like on how they're splitting the borough into 2 police regions, Bronx North and Bronx South. But here's another clip of him from the event. And part of what he says here seems to suggest a role for your office in what they're trying to do in the Bronx this summer and citywide to keep summertime violent crime down. Listen.
It is an investment that has been a long time coming in ensuring that the Bronx is treated the same as Queens and Manhattan and Brooklyn. Part of this is also geared with this summer in mind. We want to have more officers that are walking the beat. We want to ensure that we're investing in our young people and the kinds of programs that we put forward. We want this summer to be, as the governor mentioned, a summer where people remember the World Cup, Sail 250, America 250, the Knicks run right now. We want these to be the memories. And as part of that, it means putting in these kinds of investments.
So the mayor yesterday in the Bronx, is the summer a particularly challenging time for safety on the streets? I think historically it is. Did you have that experience or address it in certain ways when you worked for Mayor de Blasio in this area?
Absolutely. I mean, the data tells us that the summer is absolutely the most vulnerable time of year, especially for our young people who are not in structured activities. They're not in school. They're out. Some of them are not necessarily connected to programming or structured activities. And so, yes, we do experience that as a more vulnerable time of year in terms of crime.
And address it how? From the standpoint of your, the agencies under your purview as Deputy Mayor of Community Safety, as opposed to the NYPD?
Yeah, I think for us, it's really about providing opportunities for people to have things that they can be a part of that are productive for young people. That's mentorship opportunities. Of course, there's job programming, there's SYEP, there's sports programs, and a number of things that we try to make visible and accessible to young people, especially through the neighborhood safety initiatives that are under this portfolio. They've been doing that for years. And of course, with increased capacity in the budget, they're able to do more of that. This year, having caring adults around, I think is very important. Having caring adults that young people can be mentored by is extremely important. And really just listening to, I actually met with several young people impromptu on the street. I was across the street from a high school, and there were, young people gathering because the mayor was in close proximity. And I just went over to talk to them, and they were from all 5 boroughs. And they had a lot of thoughts about, safety and what they wanted to do. And I think it's aligned with what what we have planned. They're very interested in structured sports programming. They're very interested in ways that they could make money. They did tell me they were very interested in influencers. So I'm working on that. If any influencers are out there that want to connect with young people, I'm happy to do that for you. But yes, I mean, I think it's really about listening. It's not about doing the same old things we've done just because we've done them. And even if they sound like things we've done before, figuring out specifically what are going to be the different things that we're doing to really capture young people's attention and keep them doing things that are productive during the months of the summer.
That's interesting. So one of the things the mayor said in the clip was that there would be more officers walking the beat on the streets. You're saying there are going to be more people also browsing the beat on social media and trying to have an impact in that way. You know, City and State has an article this morning whose angle is that you weren't there with the mayor and police commissioner at this community safety announcement in the Bronx yesterday, even though you're the deputy mayor for community safety. Were you not invited, or should we read anything into that absence? The article suggests that, quote, this may be an indication that we shouldn't expect any overlap between the police department and the Office of Community Safety.
No, unfortunately, my schedule didn't permit me to be there, but there was representation from the Office of Neighborhood Safety, who works very closely with the precincts in the Bronx. And so our office was represented in that space. And of course, the mayor himself was there. I have been having conversations with folks across the NYPD because, of course, I've done this in the past for 7 years. I have so many relationships at NYPD that I've developed over time. I have met the police commissioner. We have a meeting scheduled in the upcoming weeks. Our new commissioner of the Office of Community Safety is coming on board. So there's so many things to do, and there's so many opportunities for us to collaborate and really get to defining roles and thinking about support and how the work may intertwine or not. And so I wouldn't read anything into that. But I'm glad that the mayor and the Office of Neighborhood Safety was there and represented on our behalf.
You've talked a lot about mental health as under your purview, and listener writes this text: we have a mentally unfit homeless person who frequently walks through downtown Atlantic Avenue and comes in most of the stores threatening staff, smashing merchandise, harassing customers, and causing other forms of vandalism. We know who she is by name, and she's been arrested multiple times but then released. She is so mentally unfit that she needs serious mental health treatment. What options do we have as business owners to protect ourselves from this frequent occurrence, since calling the police isn't a long-term solution? What do you say to that apparently business owner on Atlantic Avenue?
Well, I think that, one, I will clarify that the continuum of care for folks who experience mental health challenges is still DOHMH, and that DOHMH is one of our partners, but I really don't want
Department of Health and Mental Health, just so people know what the letters stand for. Go ahead.
Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, yes. I don't want people to be confused about the purview of the Office of Community Safety. Yes, we have the Office of Community Mental Health that does certain work in community to help educate people around mental health and mental health support, including faith-based communities and local neighborhoods. We do have Be Heard, which of course is the Behavioral Health Emergency Assistance Response Division, which is an alternative emergency response program for mental health crisis calls, where rather than sending a police officer alone, Be Heard can dispatch joint teams that are comprised of EMTs and of course a social worker from health and hospitals to respond to 911 calls for mental health, persons who are in mental health distress. But this is not just about crisis stabilization.
So what should they do? That listener wants to know what they can do.
So I think what they can do is, I think I can talk about what the city needs to do. What the city needs to do is better coordinate our continuum of care. And this is a part of the reason why the office was created, also to help with the coordination and to fill some of these gaps where we may be missing people that cycle from jail to the street and back again. And so I think we have some work to do in terms of helping stabilize people, not just in crisis, which is what Be Heard does. They deal with the immediate crisis response, but we still have to figure out what the long-term continuum of care is like and how we may help and support people who might fall through the cracks. I certainly think this is a place where our office could play a role in like helping with that coordination when it's brought to our attention. But of course, we have to build the infrastructure to be able to do that. So I couldn't promise today that today I will be able to do, this, but it is, we do understand that this is a challenge. We do understand that the coordination, the handoffs between systems can be very rough at times and are not, working in the way that we would want them to work. But I can guarantee you that that is something that we're working on. We, of course, have announced our commissioner, Dr. Aisha Delaney-Brumsey, who comes from the behavioral health work. Her expertise in this is long and it's deep. She's been at H&H. She's worked at the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice along with me, managing the behavioral health portfolio. She's worked for national organizations. She supported other states in doing this work. And so I'm really looking forward to her leadership when she starts next week to really help us get into the nitty gritty of these issues and how we can support our agency partners to respond.
I know you have to go shortly. One more issue I want to touch on is that the Office of Community Safety has said, certainly Mayor Mamdani campaigned this way, that you're going to be fighting hate crimes, trying to prevent hate crimes in the city. And we have a caller on that. Amy on the Upper West Side, you're on WNYC with the Deputy Mayor for Community Safety, Renita Francois. Hello, Amy, and I'm going to have to ask you to keep it brief because we are short on time now.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Francois, I'm a member of the Sisterhood of Salam Shalom, and we're a group of Muslim and Jewish women. We're part of a national organization, and I'm calling as a member of the New York City Action Group. And our concern is working together to help prevent anti-Jewish, anti-Muslim acts, make the city safer for everybody. What can we do to work with you?
I would love to have you work with me. So I think that it's clear that the mayor has made this a top priority for him, and I hope that people in the space have seen the $26 million investment, which is an 800% increase in funding for the Office for the Prevention of Hate Crimes. Our city is made up of diverse groups of people. That is what makes us the greatest city in the world. Everything that we all bring, our individual experiences, and so I'm really looking forward to working with any and everyone who wants to help us root out any form of hate in our city, whether that be violence, whether it be speech, whether it be anything that makes communities feel vulnerable because of the things that we should perceive as making them beautiful and great and a part of the wonderful fabric of our city.
Any new method you're ready to announce in that space? Certainly, we've seen way too many acts of hate violence in this country recently, the attack at the mosque in San Diego being the latest one. There's been violence aimed at synagogues and places where immigrants are known to be. I don't have to tell you. But anything new in the methodology that you can announce at this point?
Not anything that I can announce other than we are, of course, planning for what we will do with this funding to support organizations, of course, who do this work. We want to invest in programs that help prevent incidents of hate and bias before they happen, of course, but when they do occur, we also want to make sure that the communities that are affected receive the immediate outreach, supportive services, safety planning, language access, connections to trusted community-based organizations. We have had limited ability to do that in the past, and with the resources that we have, we are looking to expand our ability to be able to support communities through these issues, also as we work very hard to prevent them from happening. So Amy, I'm looking forward to working with you. Please reach out to me so we can be connected.
How can she do that? And then we're done.
She can email me at dmcsscheduling@cityhall.nyc.gov.
BMCS scheduling?
DM, Deputy
BMDM. DM as in Deputy Mayor.
Deputy Mayor, Community Safety. DMCS scheduling@cityhall.nyc.gov.
DMCS, I got it wrong. Deputy Mayor for Community Safety. Got it.
That's right.
DMCS, those initials at
DMCS
scheduling.
Yes, at cityhall.nyc.gov.
Deputy Mayor for Community Safety, Renita Francois, thank you for scheduling with us and coming on today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
WNYC Studios is supported by AT&T. Summer, it's when we share more time, more memories, and more photos. And at AT&T, the iPhone 17 Pro is your summer essential. Its center stage front camera auto-adjusts the frame to fit everyone into group selfies. Right now at AT&T, ask how you can get iPhone 17 Pro on them with eligible iPhone trade-in any condition. Requires trade-in of iPhone 15 Plus or higher, excluding iPhone 16e and 17e. Requires eligible plan. Terms and restrictions apply. Subject to change. Visit att.com/iPhone or visit an AT&T store for details. WNYC's journalism and storytelling is heard by millions of passionate listeners. Sponsors of our programming gain our listeners' attention and their respect. Learn about how your organization can support WNYC and WNYC Studios at sponsorship.wnyc.org.